All right, we thought the whole James Franklin to USC speculation rumor would be worth hashing out. There is no USC job right now. The guy hasn't been fired. But regardless of that, there are a lot of things in play here about the way this season works, leverage that coaches have, how this information gets out, Neil. Do you believe what some other reporters have mentioned, that this is probably James Franklin's agent that is getting his name out there?
For sure. That's his agent's job. And he's got a high-profile agent in Trace Armstrong. And these guys are... You always see how this evolves. You see it because the agents are not available to the local media. They're available to the national media because the national media helps them promote themselves as well. And it's sort of a cycle. We saw it with Bill O'Brien. And now, it's no surprise that James has done a great job at Penn State. I don't think anybody can ever dispute that.
Well, the reason I wanted to start with the agent is because a lot of people are saying, you guys in the media, you're just making this up, you're just throwing out space. That's not true. That's not how this works. The way this works is James Franklin's real close with Bruce Feldman. He's real close with Dan Wolken. These are guys that have had a lot of access at Penn State. We're not just making this up and throwing this out without some people who are pretty well connected having some information.
We didn't start this. This started a couple of weeks ago where the guy from USA Today, Dan Volkin, made a comment and saying he doesn't have a dog in the fight here, but if he were the people around James Franklin, he would seriously wonder whether he should be interested in the USC job, whether he can match the expectations that Penn State has for the job that he's created for the job. So that it started really about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
And I just wanted to mention all the logistics of that because we didn't deal with this for 50 years. This is brand new for most of the Penn State community. A lot of the Penn State fan base, it's hard to know how all this stuff works, but a lot of fan bases around the country go through this every year or two with their coaches. This is foreign territory now we did see it with Bill O'Brien a little bit for a couple of years, but I just think it's important for people to know that that's how this gets out there. Then the question is, why? Why would James Franklin's agent put his name out there?
Well, it just may be that James, because even James was asked today about these rumors, how they start, and he said, it's a crazy time of the year, and these things are going to happen, and I'm focused on Maryland. But he never said, he did say, I don't know, I'm uncomfortable with this because
there's not a job open right now,
but he never really came right out and said, hey, I have a new contract at Penn State. I'm committed to all these kids that we've just recruited. I'm not going anywhere. He never said that. And a lot of these coaches never say that. They never say never because it increases their leverage and whatnot. And maybe he needs more love from them. Who knows? So there's a lot of things in play. And there are some coaches that may feel that they're not career coaches at certain places. Penn State was blessed for 50 years with Joe with the stability that he provided. And somebody like James may be a 5-6 year guy at certain places and then may want to move on.
And that's been his MO, and a lot of guys do want to move, but who doesn't?
It's been his MO because he was at Vanderbilt and then he saw a great opportunity, but what did he say then? He's a Pennsylvania kid with a Penn State heart. There's a lot of moving parts here.
Who doesn't want to feel wanted? That's the thing. I mean, USC is one of the premier jobs in the country. Penn State's a very good job. USC is a better job in a lot of ways. I don't necessarily believe USC is a better job for James Franklin. I think James Franklin should stay. But again, what we're talking about here is more than just would he go to USC or what. It's just the whole process of this whole thing, because for as long as James Franklin's at Penn State, we're going to be going through this, and then it'll just depend on which job might it be that would lure him away, would be good enough. And I don't know that there are many other jobs. I do think the Oklahoma job is going to come up because Lincoln Riley will be the #1 NFL coaching candidate, period. And so other than USC and Oklahoma,
wait a minute. That depends what happens internally in the NFL. You'd hire Lincoln Riley, he's 32. Mike McCarthy has kind of hit a wall in Green Bay.
Right.
There's a lot of speculation that he may not. There's going to be internal movement in the NFL.
Right, but that's what I'm
with
saying.
Guys that are proven commodities who've won Super Bowl.
Well, that is true, but what I'm saying is, other than USC, Oklahoma, how many jobs are there that James Franklin would even consider
who knows?
leaving for?
He has mentioned the NFL, and he may be able to excite an NFL fan base better than the next coordinator. Now, we can get into splitting hairs on disagreeing whether he would be a great NFL coach, but he's more of a CEO, and a lot of the NFL coaches sleep there, and they're real X's and O guys. But be that as it may, he is a guy who, if his name was bandied about for the NFL, and it already has been, it wouldn't be a surprise.
It wouldn't be a surprise. I don't think he would be a good fit in the NFL, but we can cross that bridge when we get there. As for USC, I don't think it would be good for him to move, but I don't know James Franklin's life. I don't know what his wife wants. I don't know what his kids want. I don't know. I mean, you go to Los Angeles, that's a dream. James Franklin wants to win a national championship. He maybe can win a national championship at Penn State, but he's got Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State in his way. The division USC plays in is a far weaker division than the Big Ten East. The path to the college, there has never been an African-American coach win a national championship. Let's remember that. James Franklin has a chance at history and a legacy, and in his mind, he might try to find the best potential spot for any of that.
Right. I'm not ready to say. I think it depends what kind of ice cream you like, or what kind of preferences you have in your life. And James Franklin grew up in the East. He spent a little time at Washington State. He has no recruiting base out there. I don't know that automatically, for sure, USC's history. I think they won 17 national titles. To be, it is a premier job. But how much better is it than a Penn State job? Only because I think that is in the eye of the beholder.
Correct, I agree.
And I think, somebody might say, would you really want to battle the Los Angeles traffic? James Franklin lives in Waddle. I mean, he can drive 8 minutes to his office. There's something to be said for a quality of life in a small town. You're in a pro town out there. I covered a couple games at the Coliseum. It was a dump. I can't imagine their facilities are a whole lot better.
They are.
I don't
the
know
Coliseum's not. The rest of their facilities are.
Well,
they're on campus, and let's get to that because that is a lot of this. The leverage. They gave James Franklin a huge contract last year. I don't think that's what this. The leverage is about getting more money for assistants, getting more money for facilities. We've been told for years that Penn State's facilities are as good as anybody's in the country. That's not true. That's just not true. You look at the facilities that some of these. I thought Penn State was ranked 22nd in facilities by one magazine. Penn State's facilities are good. They haven't kept up with the times. And James Franklin probably wants them to focus on a lot of that as well.
Okay, well that's fine, and you kind of do that when you get to the point where you might not be 100% satisfied. I mean, you look at what they just put that whole student center in. I don't know how far down the road their grand plan is for improvements at the stadium and the football things, but they've done some things at Lash Building. I mean, hey, it's keeping up with the Joneses, but let's not kid anybody. They are one of the Joneses.
They are, but they're not one of the 10 or 12.
Well, okay,
there's a difference between 15, 18, 20.
You're USC. Ask the bowl people how well USC travels. I mean, how many times is the USC really loaded up an Orange Bowl
Ask James Franklin when the last time the carpet was changed in some of their buildings. Seriously, this is what we're talking about.
Okay.
And I know we can split hairs here, and people get territorial. This just to say USC is a better job isn't a knock on Penn State. What'd you say? 17 national? It's 17-2.
Right.
How many Heisman trophies have they had?
Right, for sure. I'm saying it's a premier job, but if you don't like the traffic and you have no base in the West and you don't really have a desire to go out there, then it may not be a better job.
We live in a small town. I wouldn't want LA for any of those reasons that you just mentioned. I love being able to get to 30 different places within 2 minutes. That to me is a quality of life.
Chip Kelly just got the UCLA job. I mean, I do think that it would be an easier path to a national championship at USC. I do believe that. I was very impressed with their following at the Rose Bowl, with their crimson color or whatever it is out there. I mean, it was really a backdrop, and they have a tremendous history.
But what about job security? You go out there and you have one bad year, and all of a sudden,
how many coaches have been fired there?
Yeah.
Is there AD stability? Lynn Swan's there now. Mike Garrett was there before. These are former players who weren't necessarily people that spent their career in athletics. Now, one factor I think is worth bringing up is Phil Eston is leaving Penn State. He's been James's direct contact for the last couple of years. That's really basically who James Franklin has reported.
And it was brought up, I didn't realize, that Ben Jones from StateCollege.com told me Sandy's contract is up next year.
Okay, so, some of those dynamics will come into play. But Phil Eston, who had been a candidate at in UNCC at Charlotte, I think Minnesota or possibly Syracuse these last couple of years, his name has come up. And he's a guy that helped present the grand plan with Sandy. He's leaving to go to his alma mater in Minnesota at a D3 school. So that part is changing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different dynamics in place. But I think it's in the eye of the beholder of what is, there might be a lot of people that think, hey, the Notre Dame job is the greatest job that's ever been invented, and other people says, not so much anymore.
Yeah, I think, to me, Penn State's a better fit for James Franklin, but again, only he knows that. But part of why all of this is just such a great discussion is because we haven't experienced this a whole lot with Penn State. I want to close by saying this. If this is a leverage play from James Franklin, I think at some point some people at Penn State are going to say, hey, look, enough.
Sure.
We gave you close to a $6 million a year deal. We're doing what we can for the assistants. We're doing what we can. We got to look at a $500 million renovation. We're doing what we can, given all the rest of the sports we have to fund. If you're just going to hold us over our head every 2-3 years,
eventually they'll find somebody that really wants the job.
Right. And I think that.
And he may.
But I think there's danger in this coming up too often.
For sure. And Bill O'Brien said that after the first year, because I remember we asked him, he went through this thing the first year, and then he said, well, you can't go through this every year, can you? He says, well, absolutely not. And then the second year he left.
Well, there is no USC job as we speak. If there is one, my prediction is James Franklin stays at Penn State. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know enough of the dynamics of why this fire started burning quite this hot, other than that's what happens at this time of the year. And I don't think an agent is out there doing it without a wink and a nod, even though they're 100% focused on Maryland.
Nice. All right, well, we'll do this again if there's any further developments in the story. Thanks.